Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. I'm going to start this week's meal video with not a meal. I'm actually going to start it with a really delicious slow cooker apple cider. This was a recipe that I found when I was trying to find recipes to do slow cooker meals with. This one just popped up. I did find it on Pinterest and I will leave it linked for you guys. Now this cider has absolutely no alcohol in it. It is just pretty much like an apple juice, but it's just a different way of processing it. So the recipe suggests to use 8 large gala apples. I had a mixture of like Golden Delicious, Cortland, and I think there's maybe even some Jonathan apples in there. Then you're going to slice them, leave the peels on, just take the cores out of them, and then you're going to add 4 sticks of cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of whole cloves, 1 teaspoon of whole allspice, and then you're going to add 10 cups of water. Now, I made a mistake and did not read the recipe thoroughly here, and I actually added half a cup of brown sugar to it at this point. You are supposed to actually add the brown sugar at a later point. You'll see how I kind of fixed it. I added the brown sugar and we're just gonna stir it, and then we are gonna cook this on high for approximately 3 hours. After the 3 hours, we're gonna come in and mash the apples up with a potato masher. At this point, you are supposed to add your brown sugar in. I just kind of topped it up with a little bit more brown sugar because it just wasn't quite to my liking. So then you're going to cook this for an additional 1 to 3 hours on low. I am going to be completely honest with you guys. When I got to this mashing point, the smell of cloves was absolutely overpowering. I put way too much cloves in it and probably too much cinnamon. I actually added a couple extra cinnamon sticks during the beginning process because I thought my sticks were too small. So I ended up straining this, which you are supposed to do at this point. After that 3 hours, you're supposed to strain out the liquid, but I want to be completely honest, and I actually ended up dumping this all. It was so clove heavy that whenever I drank it, my tongue was actually going numb. Cloves are a medicinal thing, and they actually help if you have like a toothache or something in your mouth bothering you. You can actually put a couple cloves in your mouth and it will actually numb your mouth. This had so many cloves in it that it was actually numbing my tongue. So I ended up throwing this batch out. I ended up actually making one a week later because I really wanted to give this a chance. I put far less cloves in it and only 2 cinnamon sticks. It turned out delicious. Now, once you're done straining all of the apples, you could actually even use those solids because it is exactly like an applesauce. I would maybe just puree it a little bit more because of the peelings and definitely take out like the cinnamon sticks, the allspice, and the cloves. But this one was really good. So you can store this in the refrigerator for up to 1 week or in the freezer. This is why I wanted to make this, because I wanted to make some apple cider for future use. It says it does store in the freezer for quite some time. Now I had some dehydrated oranges. The original recipe actually calls for you to put an orange in with the whole mixture, but I didn't have any. So when it came time to drink it, I just put my dehydrated oranges in it, and it was really delicious. The next meal, we are going to make a California turkey burger. I normally just wing it when it comes to making my burgers, and I just add just a bunch of different seasonings that we usually like, but I thought for this one I would actually follow a set recipe. I found it on Pinterest. Now the recipe calls to use 8 ounces of a lean brown turkey. I chose to actually just use a pound, and I'm glad I did. You're gonna add in a 1/4 cup of a shredded sharp cheddar cheese, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. I always like to add Worcestershire just to my heart's desire. I love it. It flavors things amazingly. Then you're gonna add half a teaspoon of garlic powder. I decided to add about a half a teaspoon to 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder in this. Recipe didn't call for it. I just wanted to add it anyways. Then you're going to add a half a teaspoon of ground pepper, and then it only says a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but I actually chose to use a full half teaspoon. Just mix it together with your hands. I know it's a really disgusting thing. I hate mixing meat with my hands, but I find that it is the best way to get everything good and incorporated. Now it's time to shape our burgers. So the recipe actually recommends to make 4 burgers. I obviously read over that part. I didn't read it. I really need to work on actually reading the recipes correctly because I decided just to make these into smaller patties because I thought if I did that, they would be a nice flat patty. It didn't work out that way. They ended up to be like slider size. So if you are making them, make 4 of them and you will not end up with sliders, unless you do, of course, want the sliders. One thing I love to have on top of my hamburgers is just some fried mushrooms. So I took some butter and avocado oil, put them in my cast iron, and just sauteed the mushrooms until they were good and cooked and nice and soft. And in the meantime, I'm actually pulling out my hamburger buns that I made. I didn't show you guys how to make those hamburger buns on this video because I've actually done quite a bit of videos already explaining how I do it. If I can find the video, I can leave it linked here for you. I'm gonna air fry my burgers because I just love using the air fryer for burgers. I find that it is the quickest, cleanest way to make burgers. I honestly hate the grease splatter when it comes to frying burgers. Not only that, but I find that I just overcook them because I'm really worried about the inside being cooked. So we are gonna air fry them. I have my air fryer set at 375 degrees, and I usually like to air fry burgers depending on the thickness of the burger. I like to air fry them for about 12 minutes. I just had to include this clip here. On this particular night, this was the sunset. I noticed it when I was at my kitchen window and it just caught my eye and I was like, I need to get that on camera. It's just so beautiful. I just really wanted to share it with you guys. So back to the burgers. We are gonna put some avocados on top of our burgers. I had purchased some avocados. They were on sale at Walmart, so I needed to get them used because you know when you buy avocados, they go ripe really quick. So these ones needed to get used. So halfway through air frying the burgers, I just took them out and flipped them and then put them back in to finish cooking. So one of the sides that we're gonna have with our burgers is just some French fries. I made a whole bunch of freezer French fries. They're super easy to make. I just pre-prep them and that way I'm not resorting to the pre-bagged fries at the grocery store. If I can find where that video is, I will leave it linked for you guys because it is such an easy way to reduce processed foods just by making your own and having them available in the freezer. In the meantime, those turkey burgers were all done, so we took them out and set them aside. We're gonna get our fries done. I just put these in the air fryer at 400 degrees and I like to cook them for 12 minutes, pretty much the same as I do the burgers. I don't even bother cleaning out the air fryer because that burger juice gives a little bit of a flavor to the fries. Both of these can be made in your oven or skillet. You do not need to use an air fryer. I just choose to use it because it's a really easy cleanup. So we're gonna get our burgers assembled. I had some homemade mayonnaise there and just putting it on top of my bun. Then I also have some of this maple onion jam that I canned up. It is so delicious on burgers or hot dogs, anything like that. It's my go-to. I have some fresh lettuce from our garden and we are gonna add our sauteed mushrooms, our mini burgers that were supposed to be mini, and then some corn relish that I had made up a while ago. This is so delicious. This definitely satisfies my craving for like a fast food burger joint. It's just so easy to make at home and just less processed foods in that meal. The next recipe we are going to make is a sweet treat, and I am so excited to share this one with you. It turned out way better than I expected to. It was kind of a recipe that I found and I'm like, that looks like a really fun thing to do. This would be really, really fun to make with kids also, or grandkids or nieces or nephews. It really is a great recipe. It is apple pie fries. They're supposed to be a take on like a French fry, but only apple pie. So we need to make our pie crust first, which they're really, really, really easy to make. You do not need a food processor to do this. I usually just use a bowl and a pastry blender to make mine, but I was in a hurry, so I just thought I would do it with my food processor. I didn't mind doing the extra dishes on this particular day. So you're going to take 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of cold butter, and I just cut it into cubes. You're also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of sugar and then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You're going to pulse that together until it all gets the butter all combined in with the flour. And then you're going to pulse in 1/4 cup of ice cold water. You kind of have to eyeball this because sometimes, depending if you leveled your flour out or not, you may need to add more water or even less water. You do not want this dough to be sticky. Once you notice the dough all starting to come together, you're going to take it and put it on a floured surface, and then you're just going to roll it really quickly because you do not want that butter in that dough to start to melt. So you want to roll it really quickly. I like to wrap mine in some clear wrap or cling wrap, plastic wrap, and then I like to put it in the fridge for about an hour. So while the dough is hanging out in the fridge getting nice and cold, we're gonna do the middle part of the French fries, which is a apple pie filling. So I had canned up a whole bunch of apple pie filling. I can leave that video linked for you guys because this is the best pie filling ever. It is really, really good. You're gonna take your apple pie filling, put it in a food processor and just process it until it gets all nice and combined. You almost want like an applesauce consistency. You could even probably get away with using like a more chunkier applesauce in this recipe also. You may not need to use the pie filling. That's just what the recipe called for, and that's what I used. So I'm gonna roll out the dough until it is pretty thin, not super thin, probably I would say maybe a 1/4 inch thick, and then you're gonna put your pie filling in the middle and then put the other pie crust on top. I just pinched around the edges just to kind of seal in the apple pie filling, but it didn't really matter because we were making them into these strips anyways. So you want to make the strips kind of how size that you want to have your French fries. I started doing this and the pie filling started going everywhere, and I thought, how is this going to work out? There's no way this is going to work out. I just stayed with it. I eventually made some of the pieces bigger because the fries, I just was like, there's no pie filling in this. It's all leaking out. So the smaller fries actually did turn out better than the bigger fries. One thing I forgot to do before I started slicing them was do my egg wash. So you just want to take one egg, add a little bit of water to it, just beat it, and then brush it on top of your pastry. After you get that egg wash on, just come in and sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top of it. So I just had to go back and do the ones that I had already pre-sliced. You're gonna have your oven preheated at 350 degrees, and then it says to cook them for approximately 12 minutes. I think I had to go probably about 20 minutes on mine because some of them again were a little bit thicker, but these were such a fun thing to make. Now the original recipe does say that you can use like those Pillsbury pie crusts, use the canned apple pie filling, completely up to you what you have available and what you have access to get. But this recipe was really fun to make. It was really delicious. I melted a little bit of caramel sauce on the side and dipped these in it. Winner of a recipe. For the next meal, we're gonna make a really enjoyable soup. This is a super light soup. It is called an easy Italian meatball soup. So we're gonna start off by making our meatballs. The recipe suggests 1 pound of ground beef, at least a 15% fat. You could probably get away with using like a ground chicken in this also. That'd probably be really good. So to that, you're going to add 2 medium cloves. I just used the pre-minced stuff. Half a teaspoon of dried oregano, half a teaspoon of dried basil, half a teaspoon dried sage, half a teaspoon dried parsley, and then half a teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Once you get that added in, you're then going to add a 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. And then the recipe has gram measurements. It doesn't give me cup measurements for this. It just says 30 grams of breadcrumbs. I think it was about 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. And then you want to add an egg in. I was just lightly beating it with my hand just to make it easier to work in. Then you're going to get everything all blended together. I have my oven preheated at 375 degrees. I'm just using a nonstick mat there. If not, it just says to coat your baking dish with a cooking spray. And then you're going to roll them out. It does suggest 1.5 inch meatballs. I just kind of eyeballed it. It says you want to make a total of about 25 to 30 meatballs. I probably made mine a tad bit bigger than the recipe suggested. The meatballs take about 15 minutes to cook depending on how big you made them. So let's get the soup part started now. You're going to take some oil. I just use an avocado oil. It says about 2 tablespoons of it. And then if you are adding it, you can add 1 medium onion diced, 1 medium carrot diced, and 2 celery stalks diced, 2 large garlic cloves finely chopped. I chose not to use the celery and onion. I just used the carrots. So I sauteed the carrots until they were cooked through. And then you're going to add in 1 14-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I just used a diced tomato, worked out perfectly fine. Because I didn't use the onions, I just used some of my homemade onion powder and just added probably about a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons of that. And then you're going to add 4 cups of a beef stock and 1 tablespoon of oregano. You're going to stir that all together. I just came in and added a little bit of salt and pepper just because my beef stock was unsalted. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring that to a boil and then lower the heat and simmer that for 10 minutes. There I am taking the meatballs out in the background. Then you are going to come in and add your pasta. Now you can use any type of pasta in this. The recipe does suggest albo pasta and using about 1.5 cups of that. I chose to use a shelled pasta and it turned out delicious. You want to cook that until the pasta is al dente, about 10 to 12 minutes. What you're going to do next is just transfer your meatballs to that pot and then stir in 1/3 cup of Parmesan. It does suggest leaving a little bit extra to top it with, and then 2 tablespoons of a parsley. It says fresh parsley, but I just use dry parsley. And then if you need to, just season it again with a little bit more salt and pepper to taste. This recipe was really, really good. I said to Stephen that I enjoyed it because it wasn't a really heavy cream-based soup. It tasted really light and refreshing. So I definitely say that this recipe is a great one to try out. For the last meal, I was going to originally just make plain tacos for this night, but I decided to kind of experiment a little bit and try to make something a little bit different than just tacos. I had some salsa that I really needed to get used up. I canned a whole bunch of salsa this year and it is delicious, but we have stuff from last year that we're trying to work through. So this recipe, I was able to use 2 jars of it. So it was perfect. To a large stock pot, we are gonna get our pasta added. I used probably approximately 1 pound of pasta, and I just used a smaller pasta. Any pasta would work in this. And then I took 1 pound of ground beef. You can use any type of meat in this at all. It would work with anything. And then I browned that up, and then I added about 3 tablespoons of my homemade taco seasoning and then just some water. My homemade taco seasoning, I do have a video showing you guys how I made that. I can leave that link for you. Once the pasta was cooked to al dente, we just took it off and rinsed it. Next, you're gonna add that cooked taco meat to your noodles and just kind of stir it all together. You wanna add 1 can of diced tomatoes. I kind of went back and forth on whether I was gonna drain it or not, and I actually decided to drain it because my salsa was very, very runny. If you're using a chunkier salad or salsa, you may not want to drain your diced tomatoes. I just chose to just because they were really, really liquidy. You're gonna add 1 jar of salsa just to start with, just to see how the texture is. I came in and added a little bit of olives because Stephen loves olives. I was trying to mimic kind of like a taco, but in like casserole form. So we put olives on our tacos, so I thought to add it in here. Now I did a little taste test and it was missing something. So I came in, added a little extra taco seasoning, probably about 2 teaspoons more taco seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, and maybe like half a teaspoon of pepper. And then I added a 2nd jar of salsa to it because it just was not salsa-y enough. Like, you really want to enhance that tomato taste. I added about a 1/4 cup of shredded cheddar cheese into this and then dumped it into a 9 by 13 casserole dish. I preheated my oven to 375 degrees. I decided to top my casserole with probably 1 cup of that shredded cheese because I really just wanted to have that nice coating on top of it. You're going to cook this for about 40 minutes. Depending on how runny your salsa is or your diced tomatoes, you might want to cook this on a cookie sheet. I had to come in and actually halfway through put it on a cookie sheet because it started dripping to the bottom of my oven. But there it is coming out of the oven. This was more delicious than I thought. When I originally did the taste test of it, I was thinking it was really bland, but then we just topped it like we would a taco. So we added some avocado because I still had some avocado left. We put some cilantro on it. Steven put some more cheese on his. I put a hot sauce on mine, and it actually, oh, and sour cream. That really made it more taco-y, but it really came together delicious with the additional toppings. By itself, it's pretty bland, but when you do add these extra things on top of it, it makes it pretty good. So I say that experiment turned out. So that is the last meal for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I really do hope I gave you a little bit of inspiration for your upcoming weeks of meals. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.